Welcome to the Points Performance Podcast with me, Tom Blake. This week, I'm joined by Tim Cocker. Tim is a member of CrossFit 3D and many, many other great things. Tim, we've had a good podcast before, and I had a load of good feedback from it. Can you introduce yourself for those who don't know you, mate?
Yeah, Tim, radio and TV presenter. I chat for a living, and so this is like an extra little string to the bow. Just chatting on your podcast. Thanks for having me back. And today, Tom, should be it is the start of a new rugby season, and I work on the rugby for BT Sports. So normally I'd just be focused on that. It'd be like Christmas Day for me, but there's a lot of other things in my mind. Hence our chat today, Tom.
Well, hopefully you get a lot of things off your chest today, and you feel a bit clearer when you're going into focusing on rugby and the egg chasing. My lad's just started playing rugby. Watched his first game the other day for his new team.
Who's his new team?
It's a team in Saddleworth where he lives. But mate, it was hard to watch. And I don't like rugby, but it was hard to watch. They're just a brand new team, aren't they? Brand new team, just getting together, just starting to learn about each other and how they play. So,
no, it's good, man. I think it's a brilliant one for kids to do. All the normal stuff which you get from all sports and stuff, and discipline, teamwork, and all of that. But the sort of social side and the backdrop of rugby, I think it's good values.
Yeah, they've got a great set of coaches and a lovely team of lads as well, and great parents as well, who all bring the kids. So yeah, I'm really happy. I think it's going to be great for him growing up, and I feel it's one of those things you feel really good about, like you don't really worry about. So yeah, it's going to be nice.
But it is kids that are on our mind, isn't it, Tom?
Yes, yeah, it really is, mate. Because you're a dad, I'm a dad, and not many minutes pass through your day without thinking about your family and your children. Like when you're at this point, because most things you do all relate back to that. Like you do things, you work hard for your family. You plan your day around working hard so you can provide for your family, and you want to look after them and keep them safe, and keep them happy, and help develop them the best you can as a dad, because that's your job, isn't it? Prepare them for the world. And there is a very large, dangerous sort of threat that's started to appear, and it's come in the shape of this looking at mandating this, well, not mandating, but pushing this vaccine towards our kids, trying to get 12 to 15-year-olds to take the jab. Yeah, mate, it's very scary. Very scary.
It is. And like you say, I think you just hit the nail on the head, saying overwhelmingly your urge the second they're born is to protect them, to make sure they're all right. And every parent knows that with a heartbeat, you'd give your life up if it meant that they were safe. And that's just our wired. And that's a beautiful thing. That's an amazing thing. So when you're faced with a situation where you feel like their safety might be to a degree out of your control, and I don't want to whip it up and hyperbolize, because I can imagine some people might listen to this and think, well, there's not a lot of risk involved, but it's just the fact that you as a parent might not have an element of control which you think you should have. I mean, for one thing, and I imagine you're probably the same, both my children have had all their inoculations, all their childhood vaccinations, and I did that because I want to protect them.
Yeah. And also there's decades and decades and decades of information, data, reports, science that backs up that those inoculations are safe and they provide certain protection for your children. Whereas with this one, statistically, children are absolutely, completely immune from getting hurt from this virus. There are no children who are suffering. There's like eight children or something in the UK under a certain age with comorbidities who've died with COVID, not from it. And that's really important. With COVID within 28 days of a positive test, so it gets pretty cloudy around that point anyway, but no children are dying from it. And from looking at other countries' data, we've started to see young men in particular suffer from myocarditis, their heart inflammation, damaging the heart cells. And when cells of the heart die, they do not repair. They never recover. They're dead forever. They do not come back.
And am I right in saying that I mean, some children get this heart inflammation and it sort of recedes, and although, like you say, there can be long-term issues, but it can be short-term relatively, but it has an overall effect on life expectancy.
Yeah, and the main thing is, mate, as well, is if you look at it, we haven't got any long-term data anyway, so we can't actually say, oh, that goes away in a year, because no one's actually suffered it for a year. No one's actually had it for a year, or, you know, no children really anyway.
Firstly, can you believe we're here having this chat?
No, mate, I really can't. Well, I've got a friend who came from America and did some coaching at my gym, and he just completely like opened my eyes to all this sort of stuff. I was so naive. I didn't have any idea that, you know, government was this corrupt. The only one little instinct I've carried with me all my life is that there's an illusion of choice with politics, and it is just like division, and you're red or you're blue, and it's just to divide us, and it's just like an illusion of choice. It doesn't fucking matter if I vote red or blue or whatever, because ultimately whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and those at the top will make it happen anyway. But other than that, you know, I had no idea that all this sort of stuff was going on. And then it was quite like a painful thing, really. Like, it was like a bit learning that all this was a real thing. And it's sort of like, I'd recently watched Black Mirror beforehand. And then when I started watching it, and I was like, oh shit, this is happening now in real life. Like, it's starting, it feels like an episode of Black Mirror.
If you haven't watched Black Mirror yet, it's out of date now. Don't bother.
Yeah, you've lived it. You've lived part of it anyway. Especially and if you can look at the social credit score system episode with the stars and the likes, which is like an app where they like each other and stuff. With the what's that pretty ginger girl called? Can't remember her name.
Oh, the one who's in all those movies from Jurassic Chris Park. Pratt, Jurassic. But yeah. I can't remember her name, but yeah,
that one she's in. Yeah, it's pretty scary. It's daunting, mate. However, one thing I do really feel is that the media can just package things up so that it looks so scary, and it's not.
I've got a great example of that, mate. And again, I'm quite sort of in tune with this because I'm in the media, so
occupational hazard.
Oh yeah, exactly. So, but one great example is, it was the Washington Post and a woman called Leanne Wen. Now, I could get into the fact that she's been linked to have funding from the Chinese Communist Party, but let's not go into that because it's irrelevant.
That is an important detail, but yeah.
The story was that the CDC, so what's that? The Center for Disease Control in America. Yeah, that's it. The story was they released some data saying 16,000 children had been hospitalized with COVID. Again, as you said, children are at very low risk, like infinitesimally small, and the people that do seem to be affected have other issues, which makes them more susceptible. She wrote after that story in the Washington Post, and it got widely shared, COVID is a major killer of children. Now, just seeing that written down, I can understand if you're a parent, that sounds absolutely terrifying. But if you look on the CDC list of causes of childhood death, it is so far down. Like, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll to find it. But she just took that one little bit of data, whipped it up, and you had a story which then got spread everywhere, and people crap themselves. And parents, it's our, as we've been talking about, it's our job to protect our children. But if you take that to its logical conclusion, if you're that wired for danger, then you wouldn't send your kid to school. You wouldn't let them go to birthday parties and sleepovers. You wouldn't let them climb a tree. You know, it's like we risk manage all the time. And you're right, the media is complicit in this. And I don't, and yeah, you can get into conspiracies about why, but ultimately the traditional media are dying slowly. And if you get clicks, then you get to keep your job. and it can just be as simple as that. But the job of us as parents, I think, is to just stop absorbing it and employ a bit of critical thinking. I think there's a culture of safetyism and a culture of fear, which we've just got to snap out of and it's our job as parents.
It's very negative, isn't it? Like with CrossFit coaching, you always try and coach the positive. So it's never don't do that. It's always try that, move that. It's always a positive. And like we only ever look at the negative in the media. It's only ever this many people are dying. It's not like nothing's ever positive, is it? It's always fear. It's always division. It's always fear. One thing I've seen on YouTube, especially lately, if you look at any video, the Guardian, the Telegraph, any sort of big YouTube page, Fox, anything, CNN, whenever it mentions anything about vaccine mandates, passports, or anything like that, there's always a huge dislike to like ratio. So the likes will be very, very few, and the dislikes will outnumber it by 10, 20 times the amount, more than that. So it shows you, like, even though we don't agree with it, and even though the media is dying, it's still getting eyes on, attention. It's still getting attention, still getting hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, even if we don't like it, even if we don't agree with it.
Yeah, but when you're bombarded with it constantly, you feel really alone. I've felt alone so much, and even on this one with I think this is the one point where I feel like there's a lot of people starting to stand in the trenches with you a little bit, because when kids are involved, I think the mindset completely changes. And I think particularly, I don't know whether you've seen in the last couple of days in America, Anthony Fauci, who's the head medical advisor to the president over there, he said that they're gonna hopefully be authorizing the injection of babies from 6 months up to 12 years, have that authorized by November and have it rolled out in the new year.
Unbelievable. I don't know if I know you mentioned that you listened to my last podcast with Steve-O and Sue, and their sort of their theories and ideas, and some of them that I agree with as well. But that sounds so sinister to me, mate. Like, it's just nowhere near necessary.
Yeah, the tough thing with it all, and again, I never stop asking why. That's the one thing. I look at it all, and when it doesn't make sense, I just keep thinking, why? And I want to believe it's all incompetence, but I wouldn't rule out anything else. But and again, maybe this is part of the fact that my sort of job at times is to be a journalist. I only focused on what I can prove, and what I can prove, and on the thing with the kids is, and this is official data. This is actual, data that, and this is the sort of information which the JCVI had when they made their recommendation to the government that, on balance, it's probably not worth giving 12-year-olds a vaccine, 12 to 15-year-olds. I think for every 1 million injections, it stops, I think it was 4 hospitalizations and 1 death. But on the flip side, there is a 1 in 6,000 chance of heart inflammation in boys of that age. Now, but it didn't say with the death, and we've seen this so much over the last year. People go, when you talk about death and stuff, people think it's heartless. Like, oh, what, you think it's okay for someone to die? No, of course not. But what it doesn't say is that 1 death that you've prevented from the 1 million injections, is that someone who was completely healthy, or was it someone who has other issues? And my cousin died when she was a baby, days old. My mum's cousin died when he was 9. So there's been examples of this. So I'm not heartless to it, and it feels, and this is one of the things that people throw at you when you have these conversations as a way to try and shut you down, but
discredit you. They try and discredit you by saying that you're not compassionate to death. And obviously
1 million injections stops a death. 1 in 6,000 injections, heart inflammation of a boy of that age.
Which could lead to an early death, which could lead to a very poor quality of life.
Yeah, one of the metrics they use in medicine is quality of life years. And so when you're triaging people or deciding, oh, shall we spend £500,000 worth of treatment on an 85-year-old? Probably not. And the difficult decisions are made in medicine all the time. Whereas you might actually go on a 5-year-old, absolutely, because we've got a lot of quality of life years, spread that over. But yeah, potentially 1 in 6,000 heart inflammation. You don't know how many quality life years are going to be cost. If every one of those teenage boys that gets that, and it happens to girls as well, but that's the number for the teenage boys. If every one of those boys, dies on average 5 years sooner, that's a hell of a lot of quality of life years.
No, it really is, mate. And this isn't even going into like the efficacy of the vaccine overall. And it is undeniable now, the data that comes out of places like Israel, where they've got 90% of the population vaccinated, and they're all responsible for the cases. There's the huge percentage of them are responsible for the cases. I think it's 78% of double vaccinated.
And again, a lot of people would say, and again, just trying to look at a critical eye on that, well, they've got the highest vaccination percentage in the world in Israel. But a couple of weeks ago, the data, one study showed you're 13 times more protected by natural immunity than by vaccinated immunity, because it's waning and it's the variants are escaping the vaccine, which is what some people predicted would happen if you vaccinate during a pandemic. And the latest study from Israel, 27 times more protected through natural immunity. And you're now considered unvaccinated in Israel if you've had 2 injections.
Unreal. It's unreal. And like normal, like science from school, we all recognize that if you get a disease and recover from it, you'll have immunity from it. And like,
and particularly when we're talking about kids, this is where I get to, is like, we can see the data, kids, and thank goodness, the one saving grace out of this issue is that it didn't affect kids. Can you imagine if it was something which affected kids worse than adults? My kids would be staying indoors and I'd be finding different ways to live.
And that's the thing at the minute, though. No children have been affected, but it's like, well, we're putting them at risk because we don't know about the long-term effects of this vaccine. Obviously, we discussed the short-term effects of this heart inflammation that we're seeing in young men. But other than that, like, there's no real data. We don't know what's going to happen long term. We don't know about fertility.
Well, we know in Israel, the most vaccinated country on earth, that they're basically working out that the current vaccine doesn't really work anymore, or its effectiveness is way lower than they anticipated it would be.
And do you know what's really odd? When I discuss this with people who are really, really pro-vaccine, and then they go, yeah, well, that's why we need the booster. And I'm like, well, if 2 haven't worked so far, why would 3? And apparently they're even discussing number 4.
Well, they're on to number 4 in Israel. They're on to number 4. Like I say, you have to have had 3 to be considered vaccinated, and the vulnerable people in Israel are on to number 4. But that's adults that can all make decisions for themselves.
Yes.
And I've got no problem with that. But just when you look at it and you go, all right, children aren't affected. And there's even lots of scientists have been saying it would actually be advantageous for a child to catch it naturally and build up that natural immunity. Now, that would be good, not just for them, but for everyone.
Yeah.
Because they're so, the risk is so low. And you say kids aren't affected. Well, I'll give you some other stats about kids, which, concerns me when I look around. Eating disorders, OCD, general mental health issues, things like Tourette's, the use of antidepressants in 5 to 16-year-olds has gone through the roof. Through the roof. over the last year and a half, because yes, they have been affected massively.
Massively, mate. It's not been the normal. It's not been anything like normal for them, and you know, and you've got to like think long term what the repercussions going to be, like suicide, depression rates through the roof.
Well, and they're watching their parents struggle, not have any meaning in life because they're not working, or they've got job security, inflation's kicking in, so their parents are arguing or breaking up or struggling.
Yeah.
Or relatives of theirs are dying of cancer sooner than they would have done because they haven't been able to get treatment. And then it's, you know, posters that tell them they might kill grandma.
Yeah.
Not
It's
being able
all
to
stress and
not
fear,
being able
like-
to see their mates smile because they're behind a mask for 8 hours a day. There's just this is the stuff that bothers me so much.
Just the negative health effects from fear are really, really sort of underestimated. The psychological pain and stress that fear puts on your body is immense. It's horrific. It's draining. It completely drains you. It's like, and if you look at Israel as well, like the you know, highest vaccination rate, they're so compliant because they are living in constant fear, constant bomb alarms going off, and get in the shelter and follow the guy with the gun and the beret because he's going to lead you to safety because there's a bomb going off or we're getting raided. They're just living in fear all the time. So they're so compliant and they'll do whatever they're told. And now, like, you could say that it's bit them on the ass because there's been a big antibody dependent enhancement situation going on. And
well, I've started for exactly the reason you're talking about, is because you know, sometimes I'm spending more time than I should looking online and thinking about stuff. And I have time on the train every day, and quite often I'll just sit and sort of stuff will go through in my mind a lot. So I've started reading some of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, you aware of him?
yeah, I've got the Daily Stoic. Yeah.
Oh, have you? So yeah. So Marcus Aurelius, what a dude! His book of meditations and stuff, and the one I think about a lot, which just you popped into my head when you were talking about you know, constant fear. It was the one it says, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." And that's how I'm trying. I'm failing a lot of the time, but that's how I'm trying to live, just to be calm, know what I'm about. And I think also that works because, like you say, there's a lot of fear about, and those people that are really scared, you can't reason with these people. You can't have a rational conversation.
No.
The people that you see little viral videos of who follow people around supermarkets shouting at them because they're not wearing a mask, they're just projecting their own fear onto other people, and they can't cope with their own fear. And so I look at those people now and just sort of imagine, what must it be like to spend a day in those shoes? And I pity them a bit. So rather than trying to change anybody's mind about anything, I know I've got to kind of be an example. And I think when you're the sort of person that looks confident and stands tall and is sure of yourself, then I think actually people gravitate to that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think you go through a sort of progression with this sort of stuff where you're trying to point out to everyone the meteor in the sky that's coming towards us, and it's like, oh shit, look at this, it's so obvious, and everyone can't, you know, one in 10 people can see it, and then eventually you start to realize that you can't convince everyone, but the ones who are with you, like you said, you have to show like a bit of bravery and show some courage around to instill some in them as well, and just be a good example.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's like it reminds that little meme you see of the dog sipping tea in a room that's
everything's fine,
burning. This is fine. This is fine, and there is a lot of that. So just sort of going back to the kids thing, that's one of the lines that I drew months and months and months ago, maybe even like start of the year. I drew 2 lines in the sand, and I said it out loud to my wife, to family members. I said, my 2 lines in the sand are, I'm not showing papers or whatever version of that is to do anything in my own country. If other countries make rules, I have to live by them. If I go to their country because I'm a guest in their country, that's fine. But I am not going to show any papers to do anything in my country, because that happened in the 20th century, and we're not that kind of place. So I said, I'm not doing that. And the other one was, they're not touching my kids. And those are the 2 lines that I said. And when I said that to my best mate and to my dad, both of them said, as lots of people did, won't happen. None of that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And now when I reminded, the other week, when I reminded my best mate that he'd said that won't happen, he denies completely that he ever said that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'd say that, like, he's probably a little bit embarrassed. Like, at least I would be.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but possibly. I don't know whether, I think that's the way that it's crept along, like tiny little steps at a time, or 2 steps, jump back 3 forward. Oh no, it's not that bad, we're coming back to 2. It's happened without people realizing.
Yeah, mate, temperature down and up, down and up, down and up, until it just gradually increases.
Loads of other analogies, like the frog in a boiling pot of water, whatever.
Boiling bucket of piss at the minute. Like, I've got a family chat group. I mentioned this before, and I'll send them some credible data from the government to confirm something I've said to them or warned them of, and there's just no response. And I was with my brother the other weekend, and I was like, do you see now that, like, everything I've said, it was right and it's come true? And he's just like, I'll never admit it. I'll never admit you were right. Obviously, it's very childish with me and my brother. There's only 15 months between us both. And obviously I'm the one who won all the fights, so he doesn't want to admit that I'm right about this as well, and that I've beat him on this as well. So it's like, I'll never admit to you that you're right. And, you know, other family members, they either come up with excuses as to why they've done what they've done, or they just like, I don't know, I just want an easy life.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of that last one. My brother's 15 months apart from me, actually. Were you really tight growing up?
Yeah, super close. Yeah. I mean, we are pretty close. Like, we talk like a couple of times a week still, and even though we're both busy with families.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed. It's only now, with retrospect, when I chat to other people, I really love how close in age me and my brother were. Because I think it's quite a unique relationship you have, particularly 2 boys, I think, of that age gap. But no, I think the alternatives are so scary to consider, aren't they, for a lot of people? And you know, family members, friends of mine, I think we always put our faith in the fact that the people that have power and control of us and or represent us or whatever have only ever have our best interests at heart. And it's scary to think otherwise. It's scary to feel like you're an outsider or you're going to be ostracized. And I know on our last chat, Tom, we talked about, you know, masculinity and we could do with some strong men right now, couldn't we?
Well, that's the thing, mate. There are a few, and we only need a few. But like we talked about, like, society last time, it sort of got us to the point where there are only a really, really small amount, because the modern man that society's produced, they're all incredibly weak. They're all, and I don't mean physically, I just mean minded. They don't have many strong core principles. They're not willing to speak the mind. They're not willing to stay strong. They're not willing to say the thing that's hard. They want to conform. They want to fit in. And it's like these conversations with my family, like, even if my brother thinks I'm right, he's got comfort in knowing that there's 4 other family members who sort of agree with him, or, you know, agree with what he's done and make everything he's done okay and better. whereas the hard truth is the minority. It's the, it's not the easy thing to say, and there are fewer of us saying it, fewer and fewer of us saying it. But I still think there are quite a lot of people out there in whole who do feel like us. Many will speak it, but then even more who just don't have the courage to put their hand up yet.
Well, I sort of count myself in that latter camp. Generally, I've gone very much inside, and I'm someone who has a quote unquote platform of some kind, and I just I haven't wanted to put myself out there in that way. This is one of the first times I've sort of said, like, the kids is a line that I'm not crossing, but I'm saying that because I'm actually thinking there's a lot of people who are like that. There is a lot.
Loads.
And now's the time. I think now's the time and now's the moment, especially if they're even going to think about going younger. Well, no, actually, my 12 and 13-year-old, I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's enough, mate. It's enough.
That's enough.
As soon as he was 18 and under, because when my son's 18, he's still going to be my baby. He's still my boy. He's still, even when he's 28, 48 of them still there.
But I guess our job as parents is by that time they're adults, and it's our job is to help them to make the right decision for them. And you can't coddle them when they're adults as well. But they're our responsibility until that point, and certainly when they're much younger than that. With the sort of young people and the strong men and all that sort of thing, strong people, it's like, where's the rebellion at the minute? That's what gets me. It's like when you look back through history, it's always young people that are the sort of drivers of...
It's hard, but think about the media now, Tim. It's hard to think that that's actually exactly how it went down. Like, is that exactly how it happened? Because the winners write the history books, and it's the media who write the history books. And what we've seen in the last year or two from the media is that they are completely complicit with an agenda, the government and the media together.
Yeah, but like the whether it's civil rights movement, whether it was the anti-war, the hippies in the 60s, free love and all that, and people that protested against the Vietnam War, that was all students.
Yeah,
just that was, it's always been. And when I was young and when I was a teenager, I was really idealistic and wanted to change the world. And as I've got a bit older, it's more, no, let me just focus on
your world,
making me better and being a good example for
look at kids, mate. Look, if you looked at college kids now, if you look at university kids now, they're not the same. Their ideology has been completely changed. Like, you can tell from talking to someone for 10 minutes that they've been to university in England, because they are so aligned with left-leaning sort of thinking.
And like instant gratification of social media as well. It's like that sort of, I want it now, not grafting for it. And actually, that just reminded me. So good friend of mine runs a training company, and they do a load of corporate training and for councils and stuff. And their most popular course, and they've probably updated it so the word will be different now, but their most popular course over the last many years was called How to Manage Millennials, which I think has probably been changed to Gen Z or whatever now, but how to manage the young people coming into your workforce, because they've been so hard for people to manage because
soft.
But what I think, and it's really easy to say this when you're a bit older, and that we'll get called boomers for saying it by people listening, but yeah, I mean, I've seen this with people that come in and that they're on internships or come in for a quick placement. They expect it straight away. It's like, why haven't I been given a promotion yet? Why haven't I got this job? Oh, I don't really want to do that. It's like, roll your sleeves up or do one.
Jog on, mate. I'll get someone else in who wants it.
But that I bet you, just jumping into like your CrossFit world, but this would go across all sort of sports and disciplines. Is I bet very, very few people in the box think like that, because lifting weights or doing things like that is voluntarily putting a hardship on your body in order to grow and be better.
You'd be surprised, mate. You'd be surprised. You'd think that, and there are a fair few people who are, who are like that, but it's like societies. There's just been a big shift, mate, and I think that the desire and need to be parented and looked after from people, and for someone to make everything okay is great at the minute, and that's why it's like, no, they wouldn't do anything like that. They'd never do that. Can't be harmful. Can't be harmful to kids. They'd never give it to kids if it was harmful.
I don't care what the government is. I don't care who the government is, where it is in the world. You do not want them to be your parent.
No.
Jeez,
well, that's what it's like. It's like,
yeah.
govern me. They look after me. They can't do that. Oh, if that was true, it'd be in the news. All these stupid things that people come out with to make themselves feel better or to discredit critical thinking. And it sounds like we're trying to say that we're better than people.
No,
we're not. And I really mean that. We're not. It's just that,
I just want responsibility for myself. That's it. So if I mess up, or if I do something great, or I do something terrible, well, that's on me.
Yeah,
that's all I want.
And what you can think about, like if you put that in relation to vaccination, we've seen that people with the vaccine can give it statistically more than people who haven't had the vaccine in certain studies.
Well, the natural immunity, people that have recovered after having it naturally have a longer lasting and stronger immunity. That is just
fact. It's absolute fact. So as far as that goes, it's just personal. It's personal preference. And if I get struck down by the dreaded COVID-19, then that's on me, isn't it? That's 100% on me. It's my issue. And I want that responsibility for myself, just like I take the responsibility for my own body to be healthy, to get in the sunlight, to drink loads of water, to eat good food, to train my ass off.
How has no one mentioned? How in the last year and a half has that not been government? Not to act as a parent, but just to come out and go, right, here's what we know. You can really help yourself if through the darker months you take vitamin D supplement and you get yourself in shape.
But if you look at it, they've done exactly the opposite, because it was close your business, put yourself under financial pressure, stay indoors, don't communicate with people. You're not allowed out more than 5 kilometers from your house to exercise. You can't go to the gym.
1 hour a day. Outside.
1 hour a fucking day. Everything that would make someone less healthy, everyone that would diminish someone's mental fortitude. It's completely against health, mate. So even if you're like, oh, they wouldn't do that intentionally, that is the result.
Well, yeah, okay, and you could say, oh, that was fear and that was ignorance last year, but we're in September now, about to approach the months without much sun. No one's mentioned vitamin D now. I've said to my I've said to my parents, have you got your vitamin D supplements in? And that's not conspiracy theory stuff. That's just common sense based on the medical understanding that we now have, that we're fortunate enough to have. So I've got vitamin D in my cupboard.
Yeah. As far as like supplements and medicine goes, there's been a bit of a funny thing that's happened with the biggest podcaster on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Joe Rogan, who I really love his podcast, obviously, at the mint. And I've listened to him, watched him on the UFC for God knows how long. I'd hate to think how long I've been watching him on that for. It's been a long time. But he got just completely bullshitted in the media in America, the left media, CNN, I think it was. Got COVID at one of his shows. If you listen to his podcast, basically, he does these shows, he's knackered, goes and gets leathered with his mates, playing fucking pool till like 4 a.m, feels rubbish, has a COVID test, he's rough, and then he starts smashing, test positive, sorry. Then he starts smashing vitamin C, all the stuff they gave Trump, basically.
Oh, the monoclonal antibodies. That was
monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin. And that's the one that really tipped them off. because they wouldn't even say it on CNN. What they would say is that
I can't believe you're saying that. Horse dewormer, Tom. Come on,
horse
get your
dewormer.
term right.
when ivermectin has been used for 40 years on over 4 billion people, and I think it won a Nobel Prize in 2015.
2015,
and it's like
and it's on the,
isn't it? So
yeah, it's on the WHO list of essential medicines. There's only about 20 of them.
Yeah. So really, it's actually it's got quite a big background. It's got a lot of data behind it, but because it's a treatment that looks like it can be used for COVID, and if you look at countries like Mexico, it's really effective.
And Japan have just started advising using it.
Yep. So if you look at countries like that, Japan, Mexico, Mr. Joe Rogan, it becomes a therapeutic, it becomes a treatment for COVID. And what it does is it takes away the reason for vaccination. And that's why it's completely demonized in the media by CNN and all those.
I've got no problem with any adult consenting to anything, including whatever medical treatment you want.
Yeah, mate.
If that's what you
do what you want, do meth if you want, mate. It's
exactly.
your choice.
Exactly, it's your choice.
However, if there is another treatment out there, like, you need to understand that these emergency powers and this vaccination is in place because they say there is no other treatment. However, there's heavy evidence that there is another treatment now, or always has been another treatment. And that's why they want to demonize it and make out that it doesn't work.
And at least I think if you had, if for your parents, or in some cases people's grandparents or stuff, if there was a treatment that could potentially hurt them, wouldn't you want that to be able to be used as well? Whereas I don't think doctors in the UK, or certainly in Australia and other countries, are allowed to even offer it. And like you say, this is something which is perfectly safe for humans. Even if it did nothing, having it wouldn't hurt them, wouldn't hurt people, but they've been banned from using it, and it's cheap and it's free. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And so much of all this doesn't make sense. And the kid thing doesn't make sense. I've got it is a little dilemma, and because I honestly don't know what I would do in this situation. I was listening to a different podcast the other day, and one of the guys has got a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they're both really sporty, a son and a daughter, and his son is the elder one, 16 years old, and he's got a shot at scholarships through baseball. And this guy was saying, I taught him to throw. We'd stand for hours and throw and catch, and I've seen what sport has done for him in terms of discipline and teamwork, and developing his body and developing his mind and all of these things. And now he's in a state in America, and he doesn't have the ability to move because he's separated from his wife and the kids live with her. He's in a state in America where his kids have to decide between getting a vaccine and being able to go to school and do the sport, which could be their pathway to scholarships, degrees and stuff, or give it all up. And the dad is kind of where we are, Tom, just saying they don't need to. But he's also got this, like, how do I tell my 16-year-old son, no, you got to give all that up. All the things you've worked on for 10 years.
He's just thought
his whole meaning in life.
It's really tough. I mean, like, me and you looking at it, we can say, well, you can't be a world-class baseball player with a heart condition. It's
but then a lot of people would say, well,
5,999
teenage boys won't get a heart condition. But do you want to roll that dice on that one chance? It's just impossible.
And like we said again, mate, we still have no long-term data. The trial isn't over yet. So can we get, you'd look at every avenue, mate. Can you get a religious exemption? Can you become a Jedi Knight? Can you do something to,
I guess the point here is it doesn't make sense that is your choice.
No, it doesn't.
How are we in a situation where that is a choice someone has to make? There is no choice to say, I'm I'm in possession of all the information and I'd like to wait.
Yeah.
I just cannot fathom.
If you look at it, there's professional footballers who are, there's so many instances like of athletes and so on who were getting ill from this jab, who were having heart conditions, dropping on the pitch. There's loads of them. You have to, all you do is go on DuckDuckGo, start searching. There's loads of it. There are examples of high-level athletes, incredibly healthy people, the 1% in their sport, 1% of the 1% in their sport, getting ill from this jab. Why would you want to jeopardize your career? You would never do it. It's like, you'd never put a dodgy creatine in your body for the risk of getting popped by the drug testing, the drug testers, USADA, WADA, whatever it is. You wouldn't have a dodgy pre-workout. Never mind some dodgy vaccine that hasn't been fully tested on humans.
What would you do in the situation of that dad? I can't. I've sat and there is the reason I bring it up. It's because since I heard that, it's just gone round and round in my mind. Like, God.
Well, the only thing I could personally relate it to, mate, is I had a chat with my wife like a little while ago about all this sort of stuff, and it was quite early on, and she was of the opinion that if she had to take it to go on holiday with the family, the grandparents and so on, she would. And she didn't know everything we know now. And now she's like you and I. She's got all the data. She feels like we do. But at the time, I was so upset and frustrated and worried, and I couldn't sleep because I was thinking, fuck me, I could come home from work and she could have had it. And, she's the mother to my daughter. She's the stepmother to my son, which she's a huge part of our life. She's the love of my life. I don't want this to happen to her. So I could probably like relate a little bit, but your little boy, it's fucking awful, mate. It's absolutely awful. And I'd probably be the same. I'd probably be like, look, son, don't do it. I'd probably say, don't do it. Like, you're incredible. You can be anything you want to be, but don't do this.
Yeah, I mean, if it was someone wanting to make that call for themselves, that's fine. There's like you live with the consequences of your own decisions, whatever they are. And as I said earlier, that's all I ever want. I just want to be responsible for me, and I don't want to abdicate that responsibility to any government or anyone else. It's if I want to eat 5,000 calories a day and get 30 stone, that's on me. But yeah, it's just I just found that particular conversation or like an important. I just kept going round and round because the lad's 16 and he's going to be in a situation where his whole meaning in life, as it up to this point, it can just be taken away, rather than saying you don't have to. It's there if you want to. And that's what people in the UK will say. A lot of people would listen to this and hear these conversations and go, they're only being offered it. Tom, they're only being offered it. But
this kid's been given a choice, take it to play ball.
Yeah. And could choices like that be ones that kids have to make in the UK before long? Like, and again, my best mate who said to me at the start of the year, vaccine passports and kids being getting vaccinated wouldn't happen. He'd probably say to me now, no, that won't happen. You won't have to make that decision. But
mate, you've seen the memes, you've seen the posts. It's just a mask. It's just social distancing. It's just another 3 weeks. It's just a vaccine. Do you know what I mean?
It's just the vulnerable. It's just the over 50s. It's just all adults. It's just two jabs.
Remember that? It's just let's just vaccinate the vulnerable,
and then we'll all get back to normal.
And the elderly is something we need to touch on as well, because like I was listening to this interview the other day with a funeral care director from Milton Keynes. And he was discussing his experience throughout the pandemic, and he goes through what happened over the last 2 years. So he's approached by the BBC. They want him to put out some propaganda, answer these questions. Here's your responses. Wear a mask with your apron and all that sort of stuff. And then that sort of switches him onto it. He's worried about COVID. He thinks he might get it, especially when he's dealing with all these dead bodies that are supposedly going to come from this pandemic, because he's thinking, shit, I'm going to get infected by all these corpses and whatnot. It's him, his wife, and his embalmer who he works for. I think he used to work for the co-op, and now he's got his own business. And he said when they started, when all this, just before the first wave, just at the first wave, what happened was that all these elderly people started coming into his funeral home. All these elderly residents of funeral homes started to die. And what he said was that they were being given a drug called midazolam, which is a euthanasia drug. And they would put any elderly people that were in care homes that had any symptoms were put on DNR, do not resuscitate orders, given less water and like barely any food. Obviously do not resuscitate orders, and they were given this drug called midazolam and heavy amounts of it. So if you dig a bit deeper, Matt Hancock did actually order like a ridiculous amount of this drug from France, especially a certain town in France, in the September prior to the pandemic beginning. It's like, I think it's like 2 times the usual amount or something like that. Yeah, and I've watched the Zoom call where he discusses it. It's a real thing. So he says he sees all these elderly people coming in, and that was the first wave. And it makes sense because the average age of death from COVID is 82 in men and 84 in females, in ladies. 82 and 84. So it makes sense that it was all these ancient people in care homes who were just living out the last few months or year of their life.
That's about the average age of death, full stop, isn't it? Or even a bit more?
Well, the life expectancy is 78 in men in the UK and 81 in women. So it's above, a couple of years above the life expectancy, the death from COVID. But, you know, these people who've got a bit of money and they're living out the rest of their lives in the care home, or the family's paid for it, like it looks like they were put on this care plan and ushered into the night quietly. That's heavy stuff. That and
it's real heavy stuff, and you know that you know the response you'll get is, "Oh, that's just an anecdote. That's just one guy saying it."
Yeah, yeah. And then, but then you look at some of the other things he says as well. I'll put the link to the interview on here. Obviously, it's not on YouTube; it's on Odyssey. But then he says it went quiet, and then when they started rolling the jab out, he's seen a hell of a lot of, even more than ever, bodies than he's ever had, of people who've been double vaccinated. And you know, it's obvious that people who are double vaccinated are getting COVID and dying. But I'm likely to believe that the government are lying about the amount of people who die, or they're fudging the numbers, or they're saying, you know, they're not counting vaccine deaths until after 14 days, and a bit of trickery like that, lying with statistics. This is all obviously speculation.
Well, yeah, no, 100%. And I'm just in my, I'll definitely look into it. I just, the journalist part of my head just goes, what can you prove?
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be, well, I don't know, like you say, history is written by the victors. Will all this come out in time? You'd like to think, well, everything will come out, and I really hope it is all incompetence and not malintent. But I mean, the one thing we sort of mentioned it earlier, that at the start of the year, I drew my lines in the sand, the 2 things. I'm not going to show papers to do anything, because I was born a British citizen. And one of the things about this country is we're all free and we're all autonomous people. And,
yeah,
you know, we don't, you know, within the law, you can go and do whatever you want. So I'm not going to show people stuff to do anything. And secondly, it's the kids. But I wish more people, and I tried to get my dad to do this. I said, what is the point at which it would go too far? What is too far for you? And I wouldn't get an answer, because I think once you give an answer, then you verbalized it, then you're accountable to that. Whereas actually that's a scary thing to do, to say. So I just wish more people would, at least, even if your line in the sand is being walked into a gulag, fine. But you've said at the point at which you will say no more. They've got to.
Yeah, mine's my family.
Yeah, that's it.
The FEMA camp shit. That line's quite,
What's the FEMA camp? Sorry.
the point where the unvaccinated get sent to a camp, mate, to protect.
Oh, right.
And mate, like, one thing I want to point out is, as well, is if you look at medicine in the past as well, it took 5 years for the connection between thalidomide being taken by pregnant women and the birth defects and miscarriages to be linked to the drug. Like, so even though it's muddy at the minute, and we've got this anecdotal sort of information from nurses, doctors who aren't being paid, of course, funeral care workers, healthcare workers, and then just general people who were like, oh my God, my fucking arm's gone purple and I can't use my shoulder after the jab. Or, oh, I've had a miscarriage after the jab. And these are all real things that I've actually been told by members of my gym. Like, we haven't had enough time. We haven't had the time. We haven't had the right enough injections. We don't know the long-term effects. We do not know. We haven't had like a full year after where we can look at the amount of births we've had, the amount of miscarriages, the amount of stillbirths. We don't know what it's like on fertility. So when people tell you it's safe and effective, they don't truly know.
Well, but when it's adults, you're responsible for your own decisions. You make your decision, and you take your choices and you take the consequences, whatever that decision is. But that's where I just come down on. Thank goodness this isn't dangerous to healthy children, and that is the data bears that out everywhere in the world, and wherever you look.
And mate, healthy children is a loose term, mate, because I see plenty of fat kids running around Tesco who were shaped like Homer Simpson, and it's like they're not healthy and they're still fine. Like, it's literally in the dozens or something. The amount of children who've been
there was okay. So what I mean by that is if there are certain children where they think they might have conditions which make it more threatening. Fine, that parent with the help of their doctor can make that decision. But generally speaking, thank goodness it doesn't hurt children. So let's wait. Yeah,
just wait.
Just wait. Well,
I think there's actually a campaign which is called Just Wait, and I like it because it's not like
you're not saying no. You're not saying
absolutely have it ever, or Bill Gates is gonna microchip you and all that sort of bullshit, which completely turns people the other way. But it's like, let's just wait. This is the sensible approach. And like you hear it from doctors, like I've spoken to, like sometimes it's just best just to wait. Don't treat anything when we don't know what it is yet. Let's just wait a little bit and see what happens, because it's not deadly, like super deadly pandemic to 99% of people. So we don't have to jump on a treatment straight away. You don't have a paracetamol because you think you might have a headache.
And it's just basically, so if you were with your family out in the middle of, suddenly got landed out in the middle of nowhere and you had to survive like, kind of cavemen, if you found a little watering hole, I know exactly what we'd do, Tom. We'd go, I know you're thirsty, I'll have it. And if I get sick, not to drink out of this. If I'm all right, then you carry on.
Or just drink our own piss like Bear Grylls.
So yeah, that's just, I can't look at it and make the kid thing make any sense whatsoever.
Me neither. And like we can talk about this anecdotal evidence. We can talk about the women from the gym message me talking about their hormonal issues since the vaccine. We can talk about the people losing babies. We can talk about the mums and dads who've been paralyzed. I don't know, a 23-year-old lad who's paralyzed on the left side of his body now from it. And there's loads of anecdotal evidence. Forget that. Just look at the data that everyone can see on the internet that's relatable to everyone. We can all see it, and it still doesn't make sense. It still isn't right. And like you said, we should all be looking at waiting, because that is the common sense. That's what makes sense. And that's what a logical person would do if they weren't swept up within the emotion of virtue signaling, the media, peer pressure from everyone they know. Everybody else has had it. Everybody's at work's had it. Like, imagine working for the NHS at the minute. Like, I'm really waiting to see what happens when they mandate it for the healthcare system in the UK. I'm ready to see a big walkout. I think there will be, and it won't just be the unvaccinated doctors and nurses. I'd guess that it's going to be vaccinated doctors, nurses, paramedics, who are like, well, you can't sack everyone for not having it. I don't agree with it.
Well, yeah, if this, again, every adult can make a decision for themselves, but if you get sucked into a vaccinated versus unvaccinated at any point, you are just sleepwalking into a deliberately laid trap. Divide and conquer. You talked about it, red, blue. That's not a fight worth having, because principles, like, again, and this is why the childhood thing, the kid vaccine thing, can wake people up, because you don't have to have a kid to look at that and go, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. Whether you've got a kid or not, if enough people just said that doesn't make sense, and at the minute it's being offered, but the worry I have is what's going on at school, peer pressure, what they're being told.
Yeah, and if you leave it, it's a Gillick's competence, isn't it? And if you leave it up to the child to make the decision, obviously, you've just got to hope that people have got a deep, good connection and relationship with the children, where they can be honest and open about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I certainly have with my 10-year-old, where he's like, I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm not doing, and it's probably time to have, if you've got a child of that age, it's time to have this sort of conversation with them and start to tell them what's really going on.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go crazy.
No.
You can just say,
I've just said to mine, this is what I would like. I would like to wait. And I think that just wait is a good message for them. It's like, you're okay. And I'm trying to be an example in this one. I'm trying to eat better and exercise and get out in the sunshine when it is shining.
Well, yeah, Tim, like you bring, you and your wife are members of the gym, and you bring your kids in with you and train with them, and it's absolutely, like, it's magic to see, mate. You and Kate are both great examples of healthy, strong human beings who look after themselves and take personal responsibility and ownership of your bodies. And if more parents did that, children would value their health more. And health isn't something you can inject. It's not something you can protect with a mask, or illnesses aren't things you can wash away with your hand from your hands. Obviously, well, you can actually, but you can't sanitize your way out of it. So it's madness. Like, the real message here, mate, and coaching the positive. The real message should always be healthy as fuck. Like, have you got any muscle mass? Does your dick go hard every morning? Are you in the sunlight? Are you lifting weights? Are you attracted to your missus or your partner? Do you, these signs that you've actually got some good things going on with your body? Like, that's what's most important. And it's just been completely missed. And I believe, like, my personal opinion, it's deliberate. Eat out to help out, close the gyms, stay in your house, all that shit. A sick, afraid population is way more easy to control than dudes who walk around with the tops off like Conor McGregor, fucking shredded or in shape at least, and self-confident.
Or even who chat through this stuff in a pub on a Friday night.
Exactly, mate. What's that? Male bonding. Powerful, that, isn't it? Keep men together are stronger, aren't they? Men together communicate. Men together are stronger. Male bonding is very powerful. It's the same in the gym. There's groups of lads in the classes, and it's great. It's a great atmosphere. Separate people, alienate them, make them alone, like you felt as well, Tim. And we become...
And give them just that one voice on the telly, the man on the telly. I mean, that's actually a phrase that a friend of mine, her mum, says, the man on the telly says. And, she does what she does because the man on the telly says.
I've said that a few times. I normally say the fat prick on telly, but you know, or paedophile, some nonce. But that's another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and you know, I'm at the point now. I used to shared loads of stuff on Facebook, or on Instagram or whatever, and I'd get a handful of messages back saying, "Oh, this happened," or "Oh, that's made me think." But now, like, I'm at the point where it's like, if you don't see it by now, some dude who wears shorts for a living isn't gonna, you know, wake you up. You either see it now or you don't. So I just speak to people who are like-minded and give them good information. Yeah. And other than that, people who come into my gym, I'm super positive with them. I try and support them the best I possibly can, no matter what their views are, because that's all I can do. And that's my universe and my world that I can control. And one thing I want to say as well is, like, if you are in a state of fear, you're looking at your phone or whatever, or the laptop, and you're like, fuck, this is really bad. Just close it or put it down and look outside, and you see that nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. You're actually absolutely fine right where you are at that point in time. And you're just like sucked into this fear, and they want you to think that it's all going to shit and you should be terrified and it's really bad, when really it's just a fucking illusion. Most of it's an illusion. It's smoke and mirrors. Look at America. Oh, he's mandated the jab. Actually, you can just test negative every week and go to work. They still don't have the power to mandate it in America. You don't have to have it to go to work. You can just take a test.
And for restaurants and stuff, it's not a law. So they're relying on
private businesses to make that
private
decision.
businesses to make that call.
And I'm not being funny, but if I was a restaurant owner, which is a very tough business and, you know, industry to work in, I'd really like money. So what I'd do is I'd just fucking let anyone come in who can pay, you know, who obviously acts, you know, with a certain etiquette in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Because money's going to keep your lights on and keep your waitresses and waiters paid and happy.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Put the phone down, look out the window, or go for a walk in a field, and get that Marcus Aurelius Meditations book and just
get it on Audible. You know, if you're gonna
get it on Audible, yeah,
or whatever it is. I've just and I've done that instead of like listening to loads of shit, which I already know. Like the amount of I already know. I've done enough digging now, and then every now and then someone will send me something, bit of information or whatever, from a good source. From a credible source.
Yeah, because there is a danger that you just, in that confirmation bias, you spend all your time looking for people to confirm what you already know.
Mate, you already know. And even if you saw something that was like a lie or propaganda from the media, it wouldn't change your mind. Stop going looking for it. But other than that, what I've done is just like read stuff that I'm interested in again. Sports, more CrossFit stuff, training methodology, stuff I really like, education, fucking Star Wars books. Like what am I listening to at the minute? Lord of the Rings. Andy Serkis has done a new audiobook version of the Lord of the Rings books. So I'm listening to them. It's like stuff like that. Live your life still. Stop getting like sucked into the tractor beam of fear from the media. You can just live your life.
You can waste your life.
You can waste your life, yeah.
And that's a little bit of, you know, where I've got to. And as much as, you know, I've drawn my lines in the sand. Actually, that was the biggest relief when I drew those lines in the sand and I said, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a weight off my shoulders. It's like, right, that decision's made. I know whatever happens, I'm not doing that. So I don't need to worry about that because that decision is already made.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully it wouldn't come to the point where that's happening, but it is coming to the point where that is going to start affecting me, but I've already made that decision. I already know what I'm going to do. And that does free up a lot of time. But, you know, that said, I'm far from perfect. And I can doom scroll down my phone.
Yeah. I mean, I'd sort of stepped away from it. And then I got sent that interview with that funeral director. But what I found that was like, instead of like going looking for more stuff or whatever, I was just like, right, that just confirms what I already knew. that confirms the Liverpool care plan thing I've been told about before, midazolam, and all that sort of stuff. Right, move on. Talk to a few people who have already discussed it with in the past to confirm it with them a bit, so they know it. And then it's just like knowledge, like, and then that's it. There's no point in obsessing over it, because it's happened. These people have, unfortunately, this horrible thing's happened. But just to be aware of it, that's it. That's all you can do. Stop stressing about it again. Stop feeling it twice, feel it once.
We control today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, too right.
So yeah, and that's a good thing to focus on, the Stoic lessons from Marcus Aurelius, the Daily Stoic. That's a great book. Daily meditation, anything like that. Like, I think that meditation can be whatever you want it to be. It can just be being present and acknowledging things that you do yourself. Like I do it all the time in coaching. Like I notice things that I do or don't do all the time, and I'm like, oh, you treated that person that way, you treat this person this way. Why do you do it? How can you be better? How can you improve what you've done there? How can I help this person better? That's my that is one of my meditations that I have, and it just helps me become a little bit more self-aware.
Yeah. One of the ones I have, I read a good little analogy of, like, we're basically saying humans are wired for struggle. It's like that's how we live. It's meant to hurt and be hard, and that's where true, like, meaning and purpose comes from. And the analogy is a tree that doesn't get hit by a strong wind falls down because it doesn't build up that strength. Trees need wind to build up the resistance to it. And so again, just going back to it, that's why I don't want anyone to parent me. I'm a man, and I'm responsible for myself and for my family. So we're wired for struggle, and whatever it is, we can cope and we can do it. So don't look to anyone else to make you safe.
Yeah, no one's going to save you. If you look into a politician or whatever to save you, if you're thinking, oh, the NHS will sort me out, my heart's a bit dicky, or I'm 10 stone overweight, it'll be all right, I'll just get a gastric band and fucking sort it out. Doesn't work like that. Like, you have to take ownership of your own life. And like the obesity thing is pun aside, huge. Like, that is the epitome of self-responsibility, being in control of your own fucking biology. Like, and if you're not, like, this sounds proper harsh, but you need to sort it out.
Well, imagine if we mapped the situation we've got unfolding at the minute onto obesity, for example. Sorry, you can't. Oh yeah, you can't eat here.
Can't eat here. Your body fat's over 25%.
You can't get medical treatment anymore because you made some bad choices.
Yeah.
We'd never do that. We'd never ever even contemplate doing that. Never. Nor should we.
And heart conditions, obesity. These things are the big
alcoholism, smoking.
Alcoholism. Yeah. If you look at the biggest killers on that list, it's obesity. That is the killer. That is what kills everyone, being overweight. It leads off into everything else. And that's something you can 99.9999999% of the time control. I've never met anyone who actually can't control their own body weight.
There are, like, thyroid issues and things like that, hormonal
but what I'm saying,
imbalances. But like, generally
you can't magically add 30 kilograms of mass to your body because your thyroid's playing up. I don't. In my 8 years of working with hundreds of people to try and make their bodies stronger and leaner and better and make them happier, I've never encountered it. What I have encountered, though, is if they stop drinking as much red wine, get more sleep, eat more whole foods, lift some weights, get happier, start shagging, get in the sunlight, I've seen the bodies drastically change and their lives massively improve. It's funny that, isn't it? That's alternate medicine though, Tim. That you're alternate medicine if you say that. You're a fucking Reiki fucking astrologist, healer, burning fucking candles and stuff.
No one said alternate medicine to you, have they?
Yeah.
What?
Alternate medicine.
This is like oh God, there's so many like little analogies. Like you look at it's well known now. Oh, we don't want to overdo it with antibiotics because if you have too much antibiotics, that you'll get resistant. You'll get antibiotic resistant bacteria, which will make us more sick. So actually, we need to focus on the stuff that keeps you healthy before you need to take antibiotics.
It's funny how we've not taken that approach with the vaccinations, mate.
Well, there's a lot of people that warned that it would have a similar effect if you did a mass vaccination during a pandemic.
Yeah, including the developer of mRNA technology, Robert Malone.
Yeah,
he's a bloke who people should really be listening to and looking up at the minute. The guy who made the technology. But then that's one big thing that people don't understand is that it's not a normal vaccine. It's not a traditional vaccination. It's not made from a dead strand of the disease.
Robert Malone, is that the fella?
Dr. Robert Malone, yeah.
Yeah, he was on
Dark Horse podcast.
No, he was on the Dark Horse podcast, but I was one the other day, and Jimmy Dore does a YouTube show, and he's a comedian basically. He's a bit like Joe Rogan, a little bit like Joe Rogan. So if you wanted to see,
he's been on Joe Rogan, Jimmy Dore.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore's been on Joe Rogan. Yeah. But Jimmy Dore has his own show, and he's a bit like Joe Rogan. And he had Robert Malone on the other day because Jimmy Dore is part of a control group of people, and they're testing. Oh yeah, it might be testing ivermectin, and he's part of a group who's having anyway. But he had Robert Malone on, and in about 20 minutes, really in real like normal language, this guy who invented mRNA technology explains start to finish, and he mentions another guy, Gert van den Bosch or something, who is the fella who basically said before the mass vaccination rollout, he said this, if we do this, it could have the effect that giving too many antibiotics has. So, and here's what, and here's why. And he said it, and time will vindicate whether he was right or not, but he's starting to look like he was on the money.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you've got to remember is that no one's paying him to say this. He's not funded. He doesn't have any ties with, the government, media.
Yeah.
He's not funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
We watch all these. That's the one thing I can't understand is how can people not contemplate that conflicts of interest have an impact? They've always had an impact.
Yeah.
And we've got whole Hollywood movies.
If you want to relate, if you want to get people to relate to it, you look at Matt Hancock and who all those face mask contracts went out to. It was his missus. His mistress's brother.
Local pub landlord. His old university housemate and his old university housemate's husband.
Yeah. It's a boys' club. It's a gang. It's a mob. It's a crew. Do you know what I mean? It's corrupt as fuck. There's many, conflicts of interest. And that's just on that level. That's just on the money level, the dirty money level. And that stuff's put out there in the media, by the media. Like it's stuff we're told about. It's stuff we were enraged with, because that's another thing they do as well. They make us decide what we're pissed off about, what we're happy about, like when an
alpaca.
Yeah, fuck me. An alpaca, go away. And Matt Hancock bloody necking with his neck. Oh, isn't it weird? He went outside of his office where he sees a camera every time he goes in it, and he started necking off with his whatever it was, assistant. Are you fucking dumb? It's all a distraction. It's a complete distraction. And they literally told you about it. And now he's gone. Now he's out. He's done his job. He got the midazolam in. Mad. It's absolutely mad. I'd love to fucking punch him. See that picture of him playing football? We see there's a picture of him playing football, and he's not going to go for the header, obviously, but he's like, wincing at this ball coming towards him. Shithouse.
Yeah, that picture of him crying on the telly is the one.
Laughing. It's a joke. It's all a circus, mate. There was a clip from Sky the other day, and Boris is on a Zoom call with Biden, or like whatever it is, and they've got the Australian Prime Minister on, and Biden forgets his name, and he's like, "Yeah, thanks, pal. Cheers."
Like that fella from down under.
Yeah, and Boris is pissing himself laughing because he can tell that Biden's forgot his name. It's a circus. It's a joke. They're just scumbags. Scumbags.
Well, I think that it's different shades of different. It's different shades of shit, and for that reason, again, I don't want them. I want them to have as little part in my life as possible.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
certainly, when it comes to my children, that's my responsibility. Get away from them.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely agree with you, Tim. And I really don't understand how anyone with any sort of common sense could disagree with those sentiments and that way of thinking.
I think and I hope that this is the hill that a lot of people will die on, because parents, that's how you're wired. But what it needs is other people who've got older children or much younger children that aren't affected or don't have children at all, to actually see that it doesn't make any sense and come in.
And there's another couple of things we can do, like we can pull our children out of that, and also those who are vaccinated and those who are unvaccinated as well. Just stop this division. We're still people at the end of the day. Just because, you could look at it like a really unhealthy person. He's still a person. We still care for him. We still love him. We still want them to be happy, and we still want to help him. Like me in the gym, many unhealthy people walk into the gym, and that's what I'm here for, to help them. But when it comes to the point where it's like only vaccinated people are allowed in here, boycott that business.
Well, and that's service. not boycott it. Yeah, vaccinated, unvaccinated, I don't care. I'm not going anywhere that does that.
Yeah, and I'm not going anywhere. I'll just say when when we'd hope that vaccinated people, like when you get rid of this mandate for your business that only vaccinated people can enter, will come back. Because obviously we don't, there might be local business owners who are terrified and think that they have to do it, and we just have to make them see that it's not going to be the way. It's not the way.
Well, it won't be able to be brought in if people stand on that principle that we're not going to segregate.
Yeah, a few countries have done it already.
They have, yeah.
Yeah, a few countries have successfully fought back. Is it Russia, Italy? There's a few. There's a load.
I think it's. I'm not sure about Italy.
Or is Italy the other way now?
I think Italy's the other way. They're going to bring it in for all private. You're not going to be able to work.
I just can't see that happening. Passionate, fiery Italian men. I'm not.
And that's not work in the public sector. That's any work.
Yeah,
Australia next, or is it? What's the 22nd? So it's like the middle of next week. All construction workers. They're not going to be allowed to work.
It just doesn't make any sense, but we know that we've accepted that it doesn't make any sense, and that's something we don't have to put our energy into, is it?
No, exactly. But in America, the postal service have been exempted from it, and that's because enough people, vaccinated or unvaccinated, in the postal service said, "That's not happening. If you do that, we're all walking out." And they stayed unified, and they had to create a workaround for them. So that's when it stops, when enough people together don't get caught up in the divide and conquer. And
you're a member of Congress. Apparently members of Congress and Biden's staff are all exempt from the vaccine mandate.
Oh, the White House doesn't have it. Same with the House Commons in the UK.
Weird, isn't it? I saw that clip with the MP who confirms with the speaker or whatever it is that they don't have to have a vaccine to work.
which is fine at the minute because no one else does. But if that gets brought, like the care thing is next week, isn't it?
Or is that the care workers?
Or is it next month? It's coming up anyway. The deadline for care workers, the people that have worked really, really long hours. Some of them never went home just so they stayed in one place, not to put people at risk
on really like care homes and stuff.
Yeah, care homes on really shit pay. Working.
This one's been coming for a while, hasn't it? I think I remember driving down the road. Where was I going to now? I think I was driving down south somewhere, and I saw a sign, like a motorway sign that said, "Remember, if you're a health carer, you need to be vaccinated by this date." It's on the fucking motorway. That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, every adult can make that decision for themselves, but it shouldn't. I mean, I think it's even in the, I can't remember what it's called, but the UNESCO or something, the bioethics, the Treaty of Bioethics, which came about off the back of what the Nazis did, the Treaty of Bioethics, and it says no one should face any negative consequence or prejudice for not taking part in any medical treatment. That's there in the
code.
Well, it's not the Nuremberg Code, but it's like the human rights charter that everyone signed up to, and it says that there. So it just just because it's that whole I can't remember what that was, Niemöller or something. He was a German fella who wrote that poem. First they came for the something, but I didn't
first
speak
up.
The
Catholics, and
I didn't speak up because I wasn't Catholic, and then the blah blah blah. But point being, eventually it will come in. If you don't have principles, eventually it will come for you or people you care about.
Yeah,
and it'll be too late. So have a principle, and the principle. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, that every adult should be able to make a decision for themselves on what medical treatment they get, and that shouldn't have a consequence on their ability to live, work, and be free. That would 100% of people would have agreed with that 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And 100% of people would have thought, if you'd have asked them, is there any circumstances that you think that would change your mind? They go, no, that's just basic.
Because at that point, vaccination was always a self-defense thing. It was always defense for one person, whereas it's been sort of like magically changed, or in the public perception that vaccination is to protect others. It's not. And now it clearly doesn't do that. It's been statistically proven. But I think it might take another couple of years for all this to come out mainstream, like the thalidomide effects. It might take another 3 years or so for all the stuff to really come out.
Well, you've got to decide what that line in the sand is, because if it carries on at this pace, what are we or aren't we going to be able to do?
Yeah,
2 years from now.
I think the WHO have already started talking about another virus, Marburg virus or something like that, where it's like, yep, you'll need a jab for this one as well now. It's like, if people will just give up the medical freedoms for this one, which kills no one, they'll do it again and again and again and again. And once you've got people just accepting these medicines and treatments or whatever, like, we're so easily controlled by that.
Well, yeah, and the what could a green pass or whatever? What could it become? Could it become like they have in China, where they limit you? Again, this sounds like bonkers stuff. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying draw your line in the sand now, so that it doesn't go past where you're happy for it to go. Because could it be where they limit your carbon uptake?
That's the one, isn't it?
They have the ability to open or close your banking, take away your personal property, stop your children from getting education, or stop you from working. All these things, it sounds like Black Mirror stuff, but elsewhere in the world, it's
reality, mate.
It's reality
in China. That's it. And
France, you can't get on a train.
Yeah,
you cannot get on a train. And
staggering.
So draw your line in the sand now. And like I say, I drew mine a long time ago, and it was, I'm not showing papers to get anywhere. In my country, they're not touching my kids.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, a green pass doesn't protect anyone, mate, because if you know, we talked about this before. Like if we know now, and it's proven, it's not conspiracy theory, it's not even anecdotal, it's not speculation like some of the things we've said. People who've been double vaccinated can give it easily, just as much as unvaccinated. So
your viral load is the same. You can still contract and transmit it.
When you don't have to test to go somewhere, you can have it and pass it. So
it's an illusion of safety.
Vaccine passport doesn't protect anyone. In fact, it makes people a bit more, if someone has got a high viral load and they are ill, you know, they can go somewhere without even testing themselves.
Or someone that might be vulnerable has a false sense of security and lets their guard down when actually they would be one of the people that would be better off making choices to look after themselves like they would with flu or whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Madness, mate. I can't, but as I said at the start, I just can't believe this is the actual conversation.
These are like little timestamps, mate, where we're like, this is where we're at the minute. When we look back, hopefully, you know, we look back in the future and we're like, this is where we were at this point. I dread to think that we'd be looking back thinking, God, things were much better then.
Mate, I cannot. Well, I hope not. And when I have conversations, I'm like, I really, really cannot wait to be the laughing stock of my family at Christmas dinner sometime in a couple of years. Remember when Tim said this? I will take all of the shit happily.
Gladly, mate. Gladly, but the conversations I'm having with my family at the minute are all I told you so's, and it's shit. I'm not happy about being right. I'm not happy about these mad things coming true, but the hit rate's pretty high at the minute. But yeah, mate, thank you so much for your time, Tim.
Nice one, Tom.
Yeah, it's been good to go over, and it's good to know that there are other real men out there who have got duty and, you know, do want to protect the families and look after them. And
I think there's a lot. I'll tell you what,
out there who feel like that, but they have to have the bollocks to say it out loud. And, you know, I know men who are considering vaccinating the children to go on holiday, to go to America, and it's fucking shocking and need to take a look at themselves in the mirror.
The mums are the ones, I reckon, Tom. Like you say, the strong men and strong dads. I reckon it's the mums they don't want to mess with, and if they carry on down this line, that they better watch out.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Wicked, Tim. Thank you very much for your time, mate. And hopefully I'll see you later on in the box.
Thanks
for listening, guys. Take care.